Hello, welcome. This is DH Paradox with the DOXcast, my initial new first episode of my rebrand. Today I've got with me special guest Mike with Simracing604 on YouTube, and I also have a new co-host, AngryOnehorn. Mike, say hello.
Hello.
Angry, say hello. Mike, why don't you kind of tell us a little about yourself, and kind of what what your passion is, what you why you like sim racing so much.
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. And as you say, most people, if they know me for my work on my YouTube channel, Simracing604, which focuses entirely on sim racing. And I got into, I guess my intro to sim racing was back in the late 90s with the first Gran Turismo. And it just kind of stayed with me that whole time. And, more recently I got into Assetto Corsa, and that was in sort of the mid 2010s, and decided to start a channel around that basically. And it's been successful beyond my wildest dreams. I'm not one of the bigger names in the sim racing media space, but still, I think for one guy working out of his garage, it's been incredibly successful and fulfilling. So, in terms of what I like about sim racing, honestly, I'm a middle-aged man playing pretend. I grew up with posters of Ferraris and Lamborghinis and all sorts of race cars on my wall, and through fate being what it is, I never got to drive anything at any competitive level. And I'm not of a economic class that can afford that Ferrari, so I just pretend to do it. And it's just I find sim racing versus racing games, I just find the sim racing is just so much more immersive and is as close to you can get to actually driving those cars, while not having to fork over hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a big game of pretend to me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I think Angry and I are kind of basically, tell me if I'm wrong, Angry, but I get the impression that at least for me, pretty much the same. Like, it's cool being able to fly these planes that obviously I'm not a real pilot, and it probably never will be, and because I just will never have the money to get licensed to do that. But it's really cool to be able to just fly whatever, whenever, or race whatever, whenever, or do truck sim even. Being a virtual truck driver is really cool as well. So it's
I agree with that. That's when I did 25 years or 23 years of aircraft maintenance, fighter aircraft maintenance. And, when you are around aircraft, you eventually want to fly them. I mean, I wanted to fly them when I was younger, but I just never thought I could have the money to do it. And then as I got older and I was in the Air Force working on these airplanes, I'm like, well, let's see how much it would cost to do. And it was timing and it was cost all the time, because you have to commit this amount of time to get your license along with the money. And being in the military, you could just never know when you're going to deploy somewhere. So you didn't want to commit to something. And I know guys that were able to, but your family gets in the way, so on and so forth. So simming, whether it be flying, racing, truck driving, even those guys that want a sim farm or whatever, it's a way you could do it without having to spend all that money. And feel like you're there. And so flying, I have done. You mentioned Gran Turismo, the first one, and I've had many iterations of the Gran Turismo. Matter of fact, I'm sitting in a repurposed racing setup for my flight sim cockpit because I wasn't doing Gran Turismo, which is what I got it for, and it was just sitting in my storage shed. I'm like, when I got into flight sim when FS 2020 came out, I'm like, well, I got that seat out there. I could just take a couple things off of it and set it up and make it a cockpit chair. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Definitely, and it keeps you connected to your passion too. Like you mentioned, servicing aircraft. My father, my dad, he did the same thing. He did a tour in Vietnam doing aircraft maintenance from the 60s into early 70s, and his job when he was in the Air Force was servicing aircraft, and so he sort of developed a passion for it. And he went on to be a husband and father, and that was the priorities in life. And but the passion never really left him. He still wanted to be around aircraft. So now, like you, he has the newest generation of Microsoft Flight Sim, and he's got I don't know all the terminology, but a yoke stick and all those kind of things. Yep. And he gets to, fly from where we are on the west coast of Canada to, his home city in North Carolina, or to, LAX, or wherever
wherever it takes you.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's staying connected with that passion. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, and I was just thinking today, there's a lot of people in these various communities that I'm a part of, truck sim, flight sim, racing sim, that, maybe they were in it at some point, like maybe it was their job, and they just can't do it anymore. Maybe they got injured, or maybe they never had the opportunity to get into that industry. And but they don't know how to get started in this space, right? Like, and that's what I would like to be. I would like to help people discover this stuff. And if there's anything I can do for these people to, like, show them how easy it actually is. It doesn't necessarily take a lot of money or expertise, or it's just there, and it's that whole wow factor. Like, when people say, like, I had no idea, and it just blows their mind. I just love that.
Yeah, and you mentioned expertise, and I'd be curious to get you guys' feedback, because I don't know much about flight sims. How much does aeronautics expertise help with a flight sim? I'm assuming it's a lot, but is that the case?
I would say yes. It doesn't mean that you can't fly an airplane in a flight simulator, but it does help you fly it more realistically. And you can add those other things in, like communicating with ATC, air traffic control, and stuff like that, and flying within the rules of visual flight reference and or visual flight rules and instrument flight rules, because each type of flying has a different set of rules you have to fly by. So if you have expertise in that, it makes it easier for you to follow those rules. But that doesn't mean you can't learn it in the flight sim, which then can transpire if you really want to take it out to the real stuff. If you've been doing it in the flight sim, now it might not be so difficult when you go out to the real airplane and go call up ATC and I got to land this thing in a crosswind. I was practicing that on flight sim. So, a lot of that stuff will transfer over.
Yeah, you can learn the basics in the simulator and, transfer that into the real world. So, And
as long as you treat it that way, if you treat it like an arcade, you're not going to learn anything.
right.
So it's how far. It's kind of like if you have, let's say, because I don't know many of the other racing, but Gran Turismo. If you're just on there driving around, crashing into everything, you're not learning how to drive the car. You're definitely not going to be able to transfer that over to the racetrack.
Right. Yeah. Very interesting.
And I did do a couple years of autocross racing, which is where they set up a cone course and you race through the course, and you get deducted points if you knock over a cone or if you go off course and stuff like that, right? And so it does. If you like my very first time racing on a course like that, I had a really bad time. So my buddy jumped in the passenger seat with me for my second time around, and he's like, he gave me a couple pointers right off the bat. The one thing I was doing was I was constantly pushing in the clutch, and he's like, the only time you push in the clutch when you're racing is to shift gears. It's either brake, gas, and that's it. And instantly my time got really better. So when I was able to go in to like a Gran Turismo and treat it the same way, then you could see my racing even in a sim get better.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
Very cool.
But the nice thing about a sim is if you crash into something, it doesn't hurt you.
And it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah. There's a reset button. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes with like airplanes.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm still trying to learn to land. Landing can be tricky, especially with crosswinds and whatnot. But older planes, they're called tail draggers. From like World War II era, where there's a tail wheel, and the plane is kind of pointing upward. When it's sitting on the ground, that's what's called a tail dragger. And I haven't been able to quite get the hang of landing those just yet, for some reason.
They are more difficult to land, and then maintain, on a taxiway or on the runway, because they generally don't have very good visibility.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, because you're looking at the sky, you can't see the ground.
So again, if you're treating it like a simulator, you're not going to go external to taxi. You're not going to go to an external view. You're going to stay in the cockpit, and that's what's nice about like track IRs, because then you can lean over a little bit and kind of see down the side of the airplane, like you would if you were in the airplane. I did a little bit of VR in Gran Turismo because they had that. No, yeah, was it Gran Turismo or was it another car sim that came with the PlayStation 4 in the VR setup? It might have been that. I think, does Gran Turismo 4 have VR capability?
Gran Turismo 4, no.
Gran Turismo Sport. Gran Turismo Sport.
Yes. Yeah, but
okay.
It was limited. I think it was only time trial mode.
Yes, but it did make a huge difference. And so I mean, I haven't been in one since then, but there was another one. I was driving a Mini Cooper around on a racetrack, and definitely, the ability to move your head and your car stays going straight, but you're able to look over, because you're supposed to look where you're going, not right over your hood. So if you're in a turn, you're supposed to look at the exit of the turn and use your peripheral to stay where you're at. And that makes a huge difference when you're talking sim purposes.
It definitely does. Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up because it's kind of controversial in the hardcore sim racing world, because so many of us drive like GT3 cars or Formula One cars or something like that. And if you're driving it in VR, you can turn your head and you can see your opponent to your left or right, or you can, as you say, you can look to the apex. But in reality, the drivers move their eyes. Like, they have the helmet on, they have the hands device on, and their helmet can actually move very little by design, right? Because in the case of a side impact, you don't want it to move. So it's actually kind of it goes against reality, because in reality you'd just be moving your eyes. So it's kind of an
Interesting point.
interesting, just
I had
little
not thought of that.
technical
I
detail.
never thought of that because I've never raced anything like that. I've always, like when I did the autocross, I'm in my car and you are turning your head.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess in those, in a high performance, in a situation where, you can impact a wall at 150 miles an hour, that might be a little different story. You're going to want that neck bracing and that inability to, that makes a lot of sense. I never thought of that.
Yeah. But the compromise for us non-VR users is like for I don't know how familiar you guys are with racing sims, but for your sake and for maybe some audience sake, I'll just sort of break it down like a beginner. But like Assetto Corsa is kind of the most widely accepted racing simulator these days. Like it just kind of it's not necessarily the best at anything, but it's good at everything. And one of the new features of it is what they call neck effects. So you can change the sort of severity of it, but it will look slightly toward the apex as you approach it, and slightly toward the outside of the track as you exit a corner. So it does help you line up your racing lines better, but it's not so dramatic that it's immersion breaking. So it's kind of a cool new-ish feature for Assetto Corsa.
Interesting. I'll have to. It's been a little while since I played Assetto Corsa, so I'll have to give that a try. Definitely. Yeah. I've actually got my roots in sim racing. I started on the console, but instead of Gran Turismo, I started with Forza. The original Forza on the original Xbox. And then when I got Forza 2 on the 360, I got the Xbox 360 wheel. But then I was able to move to PC in 2010, and I just never looked back after that. I mean, I tried to still play the console games after that, but yeah, once I tried R Factor and Race 07 at that time, those were pretty big at that time. GTR 2 was still pretty big. Yeah, I got immersed. So
it really just takes it to the next level once you get into the PC world. I mean, the price of admission to get into sort of hardcore PC sim racing is so high. It's ridiculously high, and that's an unfortunate sort of truism about PC sim racing. But for pure immersion and probably the related enjoyment, it's not on the same level as console. Like it's just so much more immersive, and there's so many more options, I should say. And just better in almost every way. But as I say, that the price just kind of gets to you. But it's interesting to hear you mention like R Factor 1 and Race 07 and GTR 2, because those three titles are so revered even to this day. Like those of us who've been with it a long time still sort of pine for the innovation and the realism that came with those titles. Like I booted up GTR 2 probably about a year and a half ago, and I even made a video about it. And I missed GTR 2 when it first came out, so this was my first time stepping into it, and just unbelievable. I mean, of course, the graphics are dated. That's just a function of technology evolving. But other than the graphics, everything about GTR 2 is just so fantastic. Like, the realism you get through the wheel, and the car's behavior, and the sounds. And, it even had some features like tutorials. You step into the game, and it doesn't just send you blindly into the world of sim racing and expect you to be good. It says, like, here's how you take an ideal line through a corner. Here's how you get on the power without spinning out, and things like that. And Yeah, it's just brilliant. Like I'm not somebody who looks back and says, "Oh, things were better back in my day," but it does seem like there was just a bit more care and attention put into racing sims back then. And I don't know what the difference is, but yeah, it just seems like those games were special. There's just something about that generation of racing sims that just stands out.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm glad I was a part of their like golden era, you know. And I got into leagues with some really really great people. There's and in fact there's still one league. They are still around to this day. They got started in 1999, and to this day they're still going strong.
Wow.
Mostly with iRacing, but they do play other titles: R Factor 2, Race Room. They dabble in Assetto Corsa, Assetto Corsa Competizione. You know, lots of various, you know, popular sim racing titles out there. They're still going strong, man. It's
That's
it's so cool,
incredible.
right?
Yeah. Their spouses must have a dedicated support group.
Yeah, the head guy, he's just super super. I don't. His passion has got to be above and beyond anybody I've ever, you know.
Yeah. That's
uh,
amazing.
yeah. So, but he keeps it going. He keeps the website, the Discord going. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Great community. In fact, I'll throw it out there. Uh, let me make sure I get the name right. Champion Motorsports. So, in fact, let me try to find their website is Champion Motorsport. No, I'm sorry. Never mind. It's cmsracing.com.
Okay. And almost a quarter century.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Right?
Wow.
Yep. They're currently, let's see, on Sunday, they do a Assetto Corsa Historics, Team Endurance Series on iRacing, and a Porsche Cup Series on iRacing. Those are all on Sunday. On Monday, they do a Assetto Corsa Competizione. Tuesday, they do a 1998 Historic in R Factor 2 and an F1 1982 in R Factor 2. Wednesday's GT3 in iRacing. So, yeah, they're Friday night they do a Friday night fun in AMS2, Automobilista 2. I know you really love that title as well there, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good. I enjoy it as well. It's one of my favorites. But yeah, they're a quarter century and they're still going strong, right? Like
Good for them.
Most of the they are the only CMS Racing is the only one I know of that is still around after all these years. Usually, you know, you'd get in a league and it would go strong for maybe a season or two, right? And then people would just it would just break apart after that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But so for it to go more than 20 years, yeah, that's saying something. These
Definitely.
guys, yeah. The only reason I don't run with them anymore is because they are Central Time Zone, and so their practice starts at like 9 p.m. my time, and they have like an hour worth of practice, and then they have like a 30-minute qualifying, and then they get to the race, which is another hour, right? So by that time it's it's late for me. It's like, 10:30,
Right. Yeah.
and, and I always I'd have to get up for work in the morning, and I have to be at work by 7, so
Yeah.
if I just as much as I really love to do it, man, I got to get my sleep, especially in these the older I get, the more important sleep is. You know what I mean?
True.
I'm
True.
48 now, so I some days I feel like 70.
Yeah, you mentioned timing, and I kind of ran into it as well, but in the opposite direction. Like I started a league some years ago, and it most of my viewership is on the east coast of the US, so 3 hours ahead of where I am. And I of course wanted to participate in my own league, so I would try and the happy compromise, I guess, was to start at 5 o'clock my time, and that which was 8 o'clock their time. And so it would be a 20 or 30 minute practice, then quali, then half-hour race. The whole thing beginning to end would probably take close to 2 hours. So that was fine for them. Most of them got off, by 10 p.m. their time, and it worked out overall. But just the 5 o'clock timing for me was really tough because I didn't get off work until 4 or 4:30. So I still had the commute, and then I'd get home and quickly kiss the wife, and then go downstairs and jump on the rig. And then by the time I got done with that, it was just about bedtime for my little ones. So it was just like, I don't know, it just kind of, sucks up your evening. And
Mhm.
yeah, it just, I couldn't sustain it, unfortunately. So I couldn't even run in my own leagues by the end of it. So, fortunate.
Yeah, yeah, it can be difficult, the balance,
Hmm.
definitely. But uh, how do you feel about iRacing? I notice.
I don't personally iRace. I've had subscriptions a few times over the years, and it's not because I don't not use it because I don't like it. For me, it again comes down to time. Like I usually am only driving probably 30 to 60 minutes a day, and that some of that is in the morning before I go to work, and some of it is just before I go to bed usually. And then I do a little bit of editing in between those times. Um, and then
Gotcha.
iRacing is that time commitment that I was just talking about. By the time you get in, even if it's only a 15-minute race, it's still, you have to definitely be at your rig at a certain time, and you have to dedicate, let's say, an hour to it without interruption. And
Mhm.
I just find it very difficult. And I wish I could do it. Like, I mean, if I was in my early 20s, would I be running iRacing? Definitely. Definitely. I think the service itself is really great. And the few times, I wouldn't even say the few times, but the times that I have run it, I love it. And I remember getting my first iRacing win, and it was just like, oh my goodness, what a feeling. Like I've never had
Right?
this from racing AI. You don't get that at all. But you go
No.
into a server, and there's, between whatever, 10 to 20 other people out there, and you come home in first place. What a feeling. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
they give you a little
unfortunately,
virtual trophy and a plaque, and I mean,
right.
it's
Yeah,
you,
it's funny. I won my first ever iRacing race. I went in there, and my experience previous to that was Sevel Corsa, and so I went in there thinking, I'm a hot shot. I got this sim racing thing, and then I went in there, got a win right away, and I'm thinking, boy, I'm it, man. Where's my Ferrari contract? And then I never got another win. That was it. That was my one and only.
yeah. I think I've only got, well, actually, I've had several wins
Nice.
technically, but most of them were in a multi-class race between um, the Jetta and some other cars. I really liked the Jetta. They've since replaced it, but um, people would kind of hate on the Jetta at the time, but I really liked it, and it was front wheel drive, and my driving style, I do better with a front wheel drive car. The whole lift off oversteer, um, uh, you know, nature of the front wheel drive car is just, it's just how I like to drive it, and it suits me. And so most times I would generally win if I could, as long as I don't get wrecked out. That is, uh, I'd qualify well in that class. I would start out up front, if not first, then like second place in that class, and yeah, had several wins. But I bring up iRacing because I've signed up for a new league that some friends of mine really have been enjoying. The past season, they were in this GT3 league and in iRacing with these guys, and they couldn't stop talking about, these guys are amazing. There's maybe 20 people, maybe 30 in it so far, and everybody respects one another. There's no oh, why'd you hit me, none of that. um, so yeah, they talked me into it. I'm going to give it a shot this season and over the summer, and we'll see what happens.
Which car are you going to drive?
Either I'll probably choose the Audi GT3. I'm definitely going to go with a mid-engine car, either the Audi or the Ferrari, one of those two.
Nice.
But probably the Audi.
Excellent.
So
yeah, good choice.
Yeah. Yeah, great car. I'm quite familiar with the Audi. I've actually won a race with that car at Nürburgring combined, which that's probably my favorite track of all time, man. That feels so good to win there. It just wow.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, that's going to be an adventure this summer, taking place in that.
Yeah, that's great, man. Sounds like it'll be a fun time. And you say 20 to 30 people have signed up?
Yeah, at least. In fact,
that's a great number.
They're still recruiting. So, anybody out there listening wants to try their website is, let me look here. It's GoRacingSim.com. GoRacingSim.com. Go Racing Sim. Great league. Definitely give them a shot if you have iRacing or thinking about renewing your membership. Great guys.
Yeah, I find like if you can get 20 people out to a race, that's a really healthy number. Like, yeah, I mean, I've been part of leagues before or done online races at least where you have fewer than 10 people on the track.
Right.
It's typically one person just gets out to an early lead and you never see them again, and there's a few people that are 2 laps back, and then you might have some pairing in the middle with some good battles, but I find that 20 or above, to a limit of course, but 20 or above, generally everyone will find 1 or 2 people at about their pace, and you can have some good battles at that number of cars without it being too cluttered. So yeah,
exactly.
That's kind of what I find is the sweet spot.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited. They're also starting an oval league as well, kind of a side. They're kind of testing out, see how an oval league would do. But oval is okay, but road is where I'm at. So
Got to turn both directions.
yes. I like to turn right, not just left. But yeah, I have tried oval racing. I mean, it's okay. I did get up into A class in oval on iRacing, which is the top class. Unless you get to the pro level, which is very, very hard. But so yeah, I am in A class in both road and oval. It took me a lot of time to get there, but I put in the work. I did it. I just prefer road. That's yeah.
And how are you with car setups?
Yeah, no. I always go with the fixed series. Yeah. And I can't use someone else's setup because everybody likes to drive a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm still not quite skilled enough to dial it in to my driving style.
I'm the same way. And yeah, like borrowing an alien setup, and generally, like especially me in the Assetto Corsa world, you can usually go on YouTube and find, some guy's done a screaming, like, 1 minute 45-second lap at Monza in a GT3 car or something, and that person will offer their setup, and then you download it, and or sorry, rather you copy it down, and then build it yourself in a Assetto Corsa, and you go out there and you're 5 seconds slower, and it's like, well, am I really that bad? But it's probably some deficit in skill, but also, like you say, like setups are so personal. It's like, yeah, I made the analogy once that it's like a furnished house. It's like, even if it was a professional home stager that furnished the house, it's not necessarily you, because everyone has
Right.
slightly different taste in what they look for. So
Right.
it's not gonna, even if it's done by a professional, it's not necessarily gonna feel right to you. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm the same way with building setups, like you mentioned. Just going with fixed setup, that to me is the way to go. Sorry, not advocating it for other people, but for me, it's the way to go, because I just don't know what I'm doing. Anything outside of the tires, I'm lost. Like you get into,
yeah.
Fast rebound and things like that, and I just don't know what I'm tinkering with, really. I understand it from a high level. Like I'm decent at repairing my own car, and I understand fundamentally what they're talking about, but how that translates to performance on track is just totally beyond me. So I just pretty much leave it at default setup most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's and this league, the Go Racing Sim League, it's only fixed setup. Like they determine the setup for everybody. They limit the fuel to a certain percentage. Downforce is fixed to a certain level. So everyone's on the same playing field, on the same level, and at that point it's up to the driver, not how much science he knows, right?
Yeah, true.
Sorry, Angry. I imagine we've probably gotten away from your
Oh no,
expertise.
no, just taking it in and listening. Yeah, I know when I used to. Okay, so this is back before like online racing. So like in 1995, I had NASCAR 95 or whatever it was called back then for the PC, and you had all those different setups. And I know, like you were saying, I know what their intent of adjusting your camber this way or that way, and your caster and all this stuff. I understand the intent of what they're trying to do, but how that correlates to me driving faster, with the way I drive, I can't figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes it worse that each affects the other. So
Yes.
It's like, even if you got a good understanding of camber and, okay, so I need, the 3.5 degrees on the right tire, 3.2 on the left tire.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I got that. And then, but if you then make a change to the toe angle, then that affects your camber settings. So It's like, yeah.
And then now that I have this, what, now do I need to have more air pressure in this outside tire? Or?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, and when I did the autocross in real life, what got me out of it is, for one, it's expensive. I was a single, divorced staff sergeant in the Air Force, paying a mortgage on a house that I bought with 2 incomes. Now it's 1 income because the other income decided it wanted to go up and leave, right? And so my buddy got me into it, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. But when you break it down, it's like, okay, I'm racing against guys that first trailer their car to the course. So they have race tires on. I'm driving my car to the course. I have street tires on because I have nowhere to put my race tires if I had them. And I'm not going to drive 50 miles up to a racetrack on race tires because there just went half a season's of racing just by driving 50 miles up the road, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, and I have to make sure I can still drive this car to work on Monday.
Sure. Yeah.
So, you quickly go, okay, this is, unless you have, money is speed. It works with drag racing. It works with road racing. It works with, oval track, whether it be Outlaw Bandits or NASCAR. Money wins races.
However, that being said, that doesn't necessarily translate over into the sim racing world, believe it or not.
No. No.
You could spend tens of thousands of dollars on sim racing equipment, and it still won't make you any faster in the sim.
No. Nope.
This is true, yeah. And, just to sort of tie those two topics together, because I've been very fortunate over the years that I've kind of built a name with the hardware manufacturers, and I get sent all sorts of stuff for review. And so my total setup now is just worth unbelievable amounts of money, and I'm so fortunate to have it. And then some comments I get are, for what you've spent on your rig, you could have a Miata or an MX-5 race car and race in real life. And it's like, kind of, you could make that initial investment. That's true. Yeah. But I mean, that's assuming I never drive it. And when I do start racing, I'm going to need brakes. I'm going to need fuel. I'm going to need tires. I'm going to need, an upgraded roll cage. You know what I mean? Like, it would just add up and up, and it would be a recurring cost. And so it's not one-to-one. Like, you can't make that comparison.
No.
And you're limited to that one car.
Yes.
Whereas in the sim, you can have any car on any track.
That's right.
Yeah. What would it cost you to take that Miata you just bought and go transport it over to the Nürburgring and race it there? Another Miata, right?
Yeah, true.
Assuming that when you get there, the weather is good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It could be bad weather for a week or a month, and then then what do you do?
Yeah. I understand their point. Though.
Not saying that Sim's taking the place of that. Like,
no,
there's nothing like the real thing, but you can get close enough and not have to go anywhere.
Yeah, I would agree. I would totally agree. If you have a passion for motorsport, sim racing will at least scratch the itch. It's not going to get you all the way there. And I've never raced, but I done a couple of track days. Like I drove a Ferrari and I drove a Nissan GTR, and the feeling of driving those cars, I haven't even come close on my best day in a racing sim.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, I paid so much just for the little few minutes I got with each of those cars that, I have to be realistic and content myself with, this really cool racing sim that is, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but some percentage as fun as as racing the real thing. And like I say, it just kind of scratches the itch. Like I wouldn't want to be totally money limited and say I can only competitively, or sorry, I can only get a racing fix when I have enough money, when I save up enough money or get an annual bonus at my job or something. Like I don't want it to be that disparate. I want the ability to, when I have the desire to race, I want to be able to do it. So that's what kind of sim racing does for me.
Yeah. And you can also throw the caveat on, if you have a significant other, you'd be like, see, I'm not spending this much money and gone all the time. I'm right here in the house.
Right. They know where you are. You're not at the bar.
You're not at the bar. You're not out spending, $300 or $400 per tire every other month because you've earned a month racing. So
right,
exactly it. Yeah. So when you drove autocross, what did you drive?
RX-7, 1988 Turbo 2 RX-7.
Wow, cool. I love those cars growing up. That rotary engine, I didn't hear good things about the repair costs, but otherwise that was a sweet vehicle.
I had a stock from the factory, a turbo model, so it came with 182 horsepower. I did modifications to it, and at one point I was pushed between 350 and 400 horsepower. I blew a couple engines in the process because all it takes is one little fuel hiccup, one little hot charge of air, and you detonate your rotary engine. So then a buddy of mine took me up to a hill climb to watch, which is where they block off the road and you race up this. In this case, it was a 1.8 mile course with 5 hairpin switchbacks, and you're climbing 900 feet of elevation. And they block the road off. They bring a sweeper truck up there the Friday before the races, and they sweep it off. And then when you're not they break you up into two groups. So when you're not racing, you're marshaling the corners. You're keeping the rocks and stuff off the corners if the car goes wide or whatever, and bring some debris back on the course. You go down there, and so basically what happens, you get 3 runs each day. So if you race in the morning on Saturday, you race in the afternoon on Sunday, and then you work the corners on the opposite time. And so everybody will race up once. They open up the road to traffic both directions so the cars can come back down the hill, and then you race again. And you do this. And there is no novice division because the part of the road that we're racing on doesn't even have guardrails. So, and for me being a first time, they want to see you have a certain number of autocross races before they allow you to race, unless you can get a safety steward to vouch for you. And I just happen to have a good buddy that was a safety steward. And so that Friday before the races, he took me up the course and gave me some pointers because they've raced this hill many years, right? And so I got to go do that. And the guys were surprised because they were like, well, your first time up, none of your 6 runs will beat this time. And my first run up beat that time. And I definitely wasn't racing the car to its capability. But I ended up winning my division or my class that year as a first time racer, which was really cool. But I knew my car needed more capability. And so that winter, I actually put camber plates, different race springs on it. Basically, when I was done with it, it felt like a 400 horsepower go-kart, but it was a full-size car. And its pivot point was in between the 2 seats. Like that's where it was nuts. But I ended up blowing another rotary engine that I had. I got a rotary out of a Cosmo, which is a car that was available in Japan. which had bigger stock ports on it than my street ported engine had. And porting is like camming like a piston engine. And anyways, so I decided after that, I put an LS1 from a 2001 WSX, I think is what it was. Basically, it was an LS1 with an LS6 cam and intake, and so I was pushing about 400 horsepower, but I was pushing about 350 foot-pounds of torque as well.
Oh.
And a 2,800 pound car.
Yeah, go-kart for sure.
Yeah. But the guy that set up, when I took it to the shop, I told him what camber settings, because I got with some people that kind of knew what I needed to do to make the car handle. I mean, I didn't lose my 50-50 weight distribution doing that, and putting that engine in, because the stock turbo motor weighs about the same as a aluminum LS1, and then I relocated the battery to the back corner. And so I corner weighed it, and it was basically 50.4 to 40.6 or 49.6. So you can see that was pretty 50-50 weight distribution. And then I got married again, and deployments, and I just didn't have time for the car, so I ended up selling it. But that, when I did get to drive it a few times after putting an LS1 in it, the guy that set up the camera and all that, he's like, it corners like a dream, but it rides rough. I was like, well, women don't wear high heels because they're comfortable either. I want this car to be able. I want the corners I was slowing down to 25 miles an hour. I wanted to be able to take at 50 miles an hour, and so that way my top speed up at the top of the next straightaway could be, reaching about 150 instead of 130. So, and that was the whole idea. And then I did some other stuff to it, but now I'm like, I really don't need to race. Well, for one, because the money cost, but I don't mind having a spirited drive. And so then when I retired, I got me a 2001 Corvette. So I have the same engine, just in a more modern car than a 1988 RX-7.
2001, is that C5?
C5, yep.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and 2001's the year that they went from that they put the LS6 intake on it. So instead of 335, it's 350 horsepower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's pretty nice.
Yeah. Now, Mike, let me ask you: have you ever tried any of the truck simulators?
I have Euro Truck Sim 2, and do I have American? Yeah, I do have American Truck Sim as well, and both really, really fun. I just don't, unfortunately, have time to make it a big part of my gaming life, but it's remarkably calming. It's remarkably engaging. Like, when I first got them, I think I got them on a Steam sale for like 50% off or something, and I had heard good things, but I wasn't entirely sold that it was for me. And then I got them on sale, and I just jumped in and just immediately connected. There's something just very serene about it, and I can't explain why I like it necessarily, because when I sim race, it's the speed and it's the the technical side of it, finding a few tenths here and there. And Truck Sim is obviously the opposite of that, but I still just absolutely love it. So yeah, that's kind of my take on Truck Sims.
Yeah, and I recently, in the past year or two, I've health reasons, I backed off quite a bit from sim racing, and so I still have my Fanatic Club Sport 2.5, and my Fanatic rims and Fanatic pedals, and I don't want to get rid of this stuff. I worked hard for it, right?
Sure.
It was my dream stuff. It was like this was what I was shooting for. And anyway, so I still wanted to drive, and I got pretty big into truck sim, and like you said, it is calming. It's very serene, relaxing. You can listen to the radio while you drive. You can use cruise control. It's and the AI cars. I swear, I don't know if they actually intend them to be this way, but they're very unpredictable. You always have to look out for the AI. They will brake check you. They will run into you. Angry knows this.
They will merge into you, even though you're already halfway through the the on ramp. They're supposed to adjust their speed to you, but they don't. They run right into you, and you get penalized for it.
Yeah, you get the penalty.
So I want to piggyback a little bit on what he said about, I knew about American Truck Simulator and Euro Truck Simulator, but I never was like, I don't want to play that. Even before I got Flight Simulator, I was like, yeah, I don't want to play that. And then I got Flight Simulator, and I kind of like got really hooked on that because I was hooked on it back in the day. Then life gets in the way. Fast forward, you find out that there's a new one, and it's the whole world, and it's all on, it's all Google or Bing mapped. So it's a really immersion world. And then, like you, I was looking through Steam, and I saw that there was a demo mode of American Truck Simulator. So I downloaded it, and because for one, I wanted to see if maybe I could use my yoke and my rudder pedals, left foot braking, to drive. And sure enough, it's not 100% like driving with the real, the setup that you should be using, but it's close enough that I got hooked on American Truck Simulator because there's just something neat about just driving through parts of the world, in this case, United States, that you've been to in real life, and there's enough of it there that that's where you're at.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's funny, like it's what's appealing about it is so hard to describe. And
yes.
If you were in like a pitch meeting to the software developer, and we're like, I want to make a game about driving a truck. It's just like, okay, well, what happens? Do you get robbed when you drive your truck? No, you just drive. It's like, well, nobody's going to buy that. But yet, all three of us love it, and, millions of people around the world love it. So there's just something intangible about it that,
it's hard to explain.
Yes.
I don't understand it because I didn't think I was going to like it that much. Matter of fact, just taken away from my flight sim time.
Yeah, Angry, I think did you put in what how many hours, and you basically discovered the entire map with all of the map DLC in like 30 days of owning the game.
Yeah. I what am I? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I guess I could. I have my World of Trucks up. I could probably look real quick while. So far, just in World of Trucks jobs, this doesn't include the other jobs and driving around. Almost 200,000 miles, and I have had to. I've done 480 jobs, and I've transported 22 million pounds of stuff.
That's amazing.
Wow. Now keep in mind though, the scale of the world in Truck Sim is not 1-to-1.
No, it's not.
True. Yeah.
It's scaled down, of course, but
okay, so here, time on duty. Oh wait, this would be time on duty in game time, so that's going to be a skew 20-1. I guess I don't know. I could look at Steam It'll tell you how many hours I've been logged into it.
Well, but that's not entirely accurate either.
No, but that tells you how much time you spent on it. Or at least close enough.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's going to be times where you have it up, but you walk away. I mean, not that it's driving while you walk away, but
right.
But playtime shows 700 hours.
Go to bed and accidentally leave your computer running.
Yes,
and,
yes, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
I've been playing the game since 2016. I got it not the week of launch, but maybe a month after or something like that. But mainly because I was curious about it. Cause, like you guys, I liked my racing at the time. I was into iRacing, I was into R Factor, and so it was like, yeah. I gave it a shot. I liked it. Turned out it was a really nice game to stream to Twitch. People enjoyed, watching me, drive a truck, and we have conversations, in chat while, they're watching me go down the road, and, AI drivers making me angry, like, damn you, cutting me off, like brake checking, and
why would you
like,
stop right there?
Right. and people in my chat are like, "Oh, just run him off the road, just hit him."
I can't do that. Now, I have been known that when I accidentally do smash into them because they brake check me or stop for whatever reason, well, I've already taken the penalty for hitting you. I'm just going to push you until I don't feel like it anymore, and then I'm going to leave you on the side of the road wondering what happened to you.
Now, I've been in convoy with friends before, and the tour buses are very, very bad at this.
They are horrible.
They're slow. Like, the speed limit could be, I don't know, 65, and they're only doing like 45. Like, come on, and
they'll weave back and forth.
Yeah, they can't pick a lane, just constantly back and forth, like, what are you doing, blocking? Like, and so a friend of mine and I we're in a convoy, and it's doing this, and making us angry, and we just tag team it. We just run it off the road, and just continue on, just to get a little bit of satisfaction. Stuff you obviously can't do that in real life, so stuff you can get away with in the sim is just great. But yeah, and truck sim is so much better when convoying with friends and like-minded people that play it the same way you do.
Play it the same way. Yep, I agree with that.
And Angry, myself, and several other guys, we like to play it realistic, where you try to follow the rules of the road, speed limit, you stop at stop signs and traffic lights, and not to say there aren't occasions where because of the AI being AI, maybe you have to take the emergency lane.
Yeah. You have to go around on a shoulder because they're not going to move until you reset the sim.
Right.
And you don't want to do that, so
exactly. So yeah.
And then, everybody, even in real life, it's hard to say everybody, but people generally drive, sometimes 3 to 4 miles an hour over what's supposed to speed. So, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that, if it's, well, most of the time I'm limited to 65 because I'm doing external jobs. But let's say it's 40 miles an hour. You'll probably see me doing 43 or 44.
Right.
But when you don't have the cruise control set, sometimes you get a little sidetracked. You're talking to your friends on Discord. You're looking at an airplane that's flying over the top of you in the sim. Then next thing you know, the cop's like, and you look down and you're like 46. You're like, you were just waiting for me to do that, weren't you?
Right.
The cops in Cortez, Colorado, man.
I'm gonna give a shout out to the current trucking community I'm a part of, Viking Transporteer. They're great guys. The head guy is an ex-trucker. Just an awesome group, and been running with them for quite some time now, and they stream live on YouTube, on Twitch, and I've gotten an angry one here in with them, and we've
a couple other flight simmers.
Yep, and a couple other flight simmers as well. Yeah, so
well, it's funny because the bug hit me and immediately it trickled to them.
Right. Yeah,
so much so that, like, again, we've reached to go drive before we go fly now, and all we ever did was fly before.
So, yeah, it's weird. I go in your Discord now, Angry, and it's like you and Raleigh Mall and Splasher6, y'all are driving truck. It's like, do y'all ever play Flight Sim ever?
Yeah, well, we have to stream it, right? Well, we have to keep our stream schedule going.
But yeah,
it's probably a phase. It'll probably die down. I say that, and it's still been 2 months, and
there'll always be something new.
Yeah.
Come down the pipeline, like some new feature or whatever. And Mike, I know it's that way in the sim racing world as well. You start to get kind of burnt out, and then you hear about, oh, this new car is coming, or this new feature is coming, and it's like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, and that's really it, and that's what's given Assetto Corsa its sort of timelessness. I mean, it was released into early access in 2013, I think, the end of 2013. So it's coming up on 10 years in public hands, which for a video game is, forever, especially in the racing world. And the key to its longevity has been the modding community, and every time there's any car in the real world that's making noise in the racing scene, somebody builds it for Assetto Corsa, and then we all get to enjoy it. So it's never not relevant. And thankfully, in concert with that, there's been people modding the graphics, and people making sure that the latest compatibility with Fanatec is possible, and things like that. So it just remains relevant. And yeah, it's like you said, there's always something new and exciting, and Assetto Corsa has always been able to stay on top of that thanks to its community, which is really, really cool and interesting.
Absolutely. I think we've been going just over an hour. I think we're gonna end it here, guys. I don't want to go too long. Me personally, I could talk about this stuff all night long. So. And
we'll have to arrange a part 2 then.
Yeah, definitely. And Mike, you're always welcome to come hang out with us in our Discords. I'll share links to our community Discords, and you're welcome in there anytime. So just
thank you so much. Appreciate that. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, and glad you could be here, and especially with my inaugural, new brand episode, and this is exciting. So appreciate it, and
yeah. All right, this was a great time. So thank you so much, and I hope you both have a great night.
Yeah, you as well. Okay, I think that wraps up this episode of the DOXcast. You can find links to everyone's media, all their links to YouTube, Twitch. All of my links in the description of this podcast. You can also find them at on my website, along with all links to all my content is on my website, dhparadox.com. So be sure to go there, and I encourage you to check out Mike's YouTube channel, Simracing604. Again, I'll have a link in the description, as well as the program notes, episode notes on my website. And yeah, hope you all tune in for next time. I'm DH Paradox, your host, and catch you later.